Hey folks, welcome to the channel. Today's build is a pretty complex one. I'll be testing for my mastersmith rating next year, and one of those knives must be a quillon dagger. So today's build is going to be preparation for that knife. Of course, this blade's got to be Damascus. I've already started some of the Damascus work, so I'm going to take you into this video after I've started. Let's go take a look. So here's the design of the quillon dagger that I'm going to be building. This is a big blade at 16 inches. Now let's review the Damascus and what I've done so far and where we're going. So here's the starting gradient stack. These are the 1084 and these are the 15 and 20, and you can see it goes from a thick band of dark to a thick band of silver, and this would be a gradient in between. So here's what I've done so far. I took that gradient stack, squished it down, then chopped it up, realigned some of the layers, added some 1084 on the top, some 15 and 20 on the bottom, forged that down to a cube, re-squared the corners, squished that down to make C's, restacked that, knocked in the corners, and now I have the end, which you see here. So here's what we're starting with. You can see the gradient pattern in here. So these were C's that I re-squared on the diagonal. I didn't quite get it perfectly diagonal, but I don't think it's going to matter much for what I'm trying to do. So now we're going to four-way this, and then we're going to attempt the spiral. I think that's going to look pretty cool. Alright, so I got the four-way welded together. Actually ran out of propane, but this was a good excuse to take a look at this. What I'm actually going to do is we're going to start the next phase, which is going to be the swirl, or trying to get these in that circular kind of vortex pattern. And I'm going to do this in sections because I want to twist or twirl one in one direction and one in the other. So we're going to cut this in half, and that's going to give me an excuse to check the pattern on the inside. So let's go cut this in half. So there's the pattern before the swirl. Now we're going to round it off and try to make this a little swirl. I'm sure some of you are thinking, what's this swirl he's talking about? Unlike a twist, where if you take a cross-section, you'll always see the starting image. With the swirl, I'm actually distorting it in a spiral pattern. And it originated from this image that you see here. Accidentally, I twisted or swirled this explosion and got a really cool effect. You see some of the smaller ones have this swirl effect. That's what I'm going for to do, but on purpose this time. The way this works is to round out the bar, but have slight facets. And as you turn the bar continuously in one direction and flatten out those facets, it distorts it in a swirl pattern. That's what I'm looking for. Since we're going to be restacking this in a four-way, I need to get this back into a square. So that's what I'm doing now.
Well, I wouldn't say I had success at this, but I do see some of the swirl that I was looking for. These two are the same bar, and these two are the same bar, and this is the center. I feel like I did not get much movement in the first one. I do see a little bit of kind of the ends kind of twisting this way, but on this one, you definitely see more of the swirl here on this one, but it's very minor. So I'm going to keep playing with this technique until I get it mastered. I think I want to start with a larger billet next time when I do the swirl, but it certainly has merit. I'm going to go ahead and four-way this again just to see the pattern. I think it's still going to look cool. It's just not exactly what I was going for, but let's weld it up and see what our final pattern looks like.
I've sliced up the billet into tiles. We're going to flip every second one, tack them all up, and get them back in the forge. We want to make sure this one's good and hot. We're going to set the welds and stretch this out. The rolling mill makes quick work of stretching out steel.
Now it's time to turn the billet into the sword. So first thing I'm going to do is forge down the tang and then put in these and then taper the tip. I won't be hammering in any bevels on this. I want to keep it pretty thick because it's going to have a pretty thick medial ridge here. So let's light up the forge.
I'm using the guillotine tool here to make little set downs where the ricasso and tang interface is going to be, and this is so when you go to press them, it doesn't drag down the heel area. You'll notice that the handle I was using actually becomes part of the tang. That's actually pretty normal when it came to swords of the Middle Ages because hardenable steel was very valuable, so they would use mild steel and weld it on to make the tang. Now moving on to make those scallops that are right by the ricasso. And now those bigger scallops right after that. I'm going to spend a few heats just forming the tip of the dagger with the press, and then we'll move over to the anvil and the hand hammer. And now just a little bit of extra work to fix up those scallops near the ricasso and straighten the tang, and we should be all done at the anvil.
So here we are after forging. Still pretty thick. It's over 3/8, which is fine. And it's a little longer than I had anticipated, but probably only by about an inch. I'm going to end up taking a bit of this off. But let's go surface grind it, and then we can put the pattern on it. So here's the blade all profiled. Important when you do this, draw a center line and then take measurements all the way down just to make sure that this is completely symmetrical. So that's what I've done. I got it down to just over 1/4 inch. And now I'm going to do the heat treating before I do bevels, just to make sure it doesn't warp or anything, since this will be a pretty complex grind. So I surface ground this after heat treat and temper and etched it, and you can really see how the pattern flows around the blade now that I've forged it instead of just cutting it out. Here these kind of move, so really happy with how the pattern looks. Now it's time to grind the bevels. Got some layout fluid on one side, I'll do the other, give myself some lines to follow.
The grind was quite challenging because of those scallops. The angle changes as the curve of those scallops changes, so it was a tough one. The most important part of a dagger is to get that center line perfectly straight. So I took a lot of time and care to make sure that those were straight.
So here it is after final grinding, well, almost final. I need to convex the edge. It's still a little thick here. But yeah, I checked measured the ridge from both sides, and it's centered. I did go back and kind of fix the plunges a little bit with the diamond file just to make sure they're perfect. And I milled the shoulders. So now we're ready to start thinking about the guard. The guard is going to be something like that. I'll be making this guard out of mild steel because I'm going to be hot salting it. So this is what I'm going to use because it's just the stock that I have that'll work. It's not quite wide enough, so I'm actually going to pop this in the forge and upset it this way, so this will be the base. The quillions will come up here. And I do want to perfectly grind this out of a piece. I don't want to have to bend it and turn it or anything like that because I want to make sure that I can measure, mark it out, and they're perfectly symmetrical. All right, let's fire up the forge. Okay, so you guys saw me laser the pattern onto this, which is why I wanted to mill this perfectly flat. I've also gone ahead and convex the edge of the dagger and then sanded the flats here, so we're all ready to slot the guard and get it on here.
We always slightly undersize the slot so we hammer it on and get a perfect fit.
So I've done a bunch of work grinding and filing the guard. So I think it looks pretty good. It fits up nice. Obviously still some contouring here to do on the top and the edges, but we're going to leave that for now and move on to the spacer. So here's the general design for the spacer. There's going to be some damascus here. This is going to be some mild steel that's going to be black, which will match the guard. And then another strip of damascus, and there's going to be these bevels here, and then there's going to be a strip of gold engraving right here against the black, which would look pretty cool. So to get this, I've actually already put together the pieces for this. This is way too big right now, but you can see that I slotted it, but I also drilled a hole so that I could put a bolt through it and turn it on the lathe. So now we're going to go finish turning this down to size and put these little bevels in it.
And now I'm moving on to the pommel. The first thing is to drill a hole and then tap it so we can screw it onto the end of the tang.
So here's the status so far. I've got this sanded to 220, and I am ready to actually go back and start working on the handle. For this, I'm going to be using some ivory, and I want that to be spiral fluted, and there's going to be some gold wire inlay. The piece I'm going to use is something like this, the piece of white ivory, and this actually is a piece that was too small. I took a piece off of this one, and it's actually chucked up in the lathe because we're going to turn it. So let's go take a look.
This piece of ivory was about $400, so I really didn't want to screw this up. So I really took care to make sure this went well.
Okay, I've got the ivory turned. It's a little narrower than I wanted, just the way that the hole got drilled, but we're going to make it work, hopefully. So now I need to widen this part so that it fits up here, because I only have a 5/16 hole drilled in it. So we're going to do that with an end mill in a hand drill, just because this is going to be on an angle, and I don't want to try to put this in a vise. So I got the handle shaped, it's slotted so it now fits on the knife, and now I'm going to do the spiral fluting. Now that we got our grid pattern on, we just connect up the corners.
So there's what our fluting is going to look like. And remember, every second one is a flute, and the others are going to be the actual wires. So there's going to be 4 wires and 4 flutes. Now it's time to file these out. So here's the fluted handle, and here is the 18 karat gold wire that I just twisted. Really the reason I twisted this is to check the length, because I had 2 24-inch pieces of this, so I wanted to make sure I had enough, because I'm not really happy with how this came out. I don't like the flat spots here, so I'm going to go with double fluting and 8 wires, which means I need an extra 48 inches of 18 karat wire, and that's another $500 for this build, but I think it's just going to look better. So what I'm going to do is make these deep channels here again, and then put the wire between those, which is what I've done on the last couple of fluted handles that I've done. So I don't know, it's just going to look nicer and richer. Yeah, folks, had to remake the pommel a couple times. Actually, this is the first one which I made before I did the handle, and then decided that this was too big. But then after I did the flute, and I redid this one, and then after I did the fluting, this was too small. So made this one to fit after the fluting, and it's just right. And by the way, here is the handle with the new pommel in place. I love the spiral fluting. It looks awesome, and I'm so glad I went with the 8 wires instead of the 4. Now that I have the new pommel done, I want to do something a little more special to it other than just turning the end here. So what I'm going to do is some spiral fluting to match the handle. I've actually already done this on a test piece, which is right here. So love it. Now we're going to reproduce it over here. So to mark this a little easier on the pommel, and a little more precisely, I got a marker chucked up in my lathe here, and I'm going to be marking these with the marker, and I've got little sectors marked on my lathe here and a little tick, and I'm just going to line them up, and that's how I'll get the lines. This is basically the identical operation I did on the handle, just that it's steel and just takes a lot longer, that's all, but basically the same. So I finished the sanding on the handle and I buffed it, and I just love how it's come out, nice and shiny. I've gone ahead and drilled the holes. We'll actually use the high-speed rotary tool and just put little channels here with holes. The holes, the wire, actually on this side, the wire is going to go into the holes and it'll be draped down here. Then I will pull it tight, and I'm actually just going to glue it with CA glue into the channels, because I find if you try to push the other end into the hole, it loosens the wire. So I'm just going to pull the wire tight with pliers and just glue it into the channel. Finally done the handle. Nice and buffed, all the gold wires in it. Hey folks, we're up in the office because we're going to be lasering this guard. I've actually already done the channel here and there, and on the other side, that is for the gold inlay. This took quite a while to do, probably about 8 hours per side, with this new laser, and you guys will see a much longer video about this laser next month. But now I'm going to put a little infinity symbol right here. We're also going to be lasering a channel for some more gold inlay in the actual blade, which is going to be right there. Again, we're lasering a channel so that we can press in some gold wire. So here's the little symbol that's going to go on the blade. I figured I would laser this first, and then I could be sanding the blade while the guard is being lasered, since this stuff takes a while. It's going to go right here. All right, let's start it up. Now I'm using my pneumatic engraver just to put some dovetails at the bottom of the channel. This isn't strictly necessary because the laser does put in a kind of a rough edge and the wire does stay in, but just to be safe. Well, I got a pretty big screw up. I lasered this on and kind of eyeballed it, and it is not perfectly lined up with the blade. I only really wanted to do this on one side. I did actually notice early on that it was off a little bit, so then I overcompensated, and now it's off on the other side. So what I'm actually going to do, I've decided this is really deep, like almost just 30-second deep, so there's no way I'm going to sand it out. So what I think I'm going to do is go to the mill and actually mill a hole into this that's perfectly centered, kind of in this shape, and then I'll just use diamond files to file the rest to get the look I want, but it'll be a hole through the knife instead of gold inlay. So here's the hole through the blade, and it's nice and even on both sides. So I am ready to finish the hand sanding on this guy and then do the etch. It's all sanded and ready for the acid. Now it's time for my favorite part of the build, to hot salt all of the steel parts to make them jet black. It's been about 15 minutes. Let's see how they look. Now let's see the finished product. I got some great feedback on this dagger from a bunch of mastersmiths at Blade, Texas. A few improvements and things that I changed for my actual quillon dagger, but it turned out really well. I'm super thrilled with it, and it'll be for sale at Blade Show this year. Thanks, folks. We'll see you on the next one.